Fellas, I think it's safe to say that this year in the UFC we've had so many upsets. Some have been between ranked fighters, some have been between legit contenders, some even between champions. So I'm going to be doing a tier list of these upsets. S tier being kind of like it's one of the biggest upsets we've had in recent MMA, not just necessarily this year. And then D tier kind of being like, it's not really an upset. I mean, an underdog might have won the fight, but it's not necessarily an upset. I'm going to try and keep them all upsets as well. I haven't just included every single time an underdog won a fight, but let me know your thoughts on this list and if you've, if you change anything around or if I missed any obvious upsets out, because there has been quite a few this year. But yeah, we're going to go in there with the first fight, which I've chosen to be Sean O'Malley versus Aljamain Sterling. Now, this is a big one to start off with. Obviously, UFC 292. I'm going to put it in A tier. Now, a lot of people are going to be thinking, why is this not S tier? Now, it is definitely one of the biggest upsets we've had this year. But I don't want the result. Sorry, I don't want the kind of the way it ended to get in the way of the upset. I guess knocking him out in the pretty early on in the fight kind of adds to it. But I'm going to be trying to focus on the result. And he did beat Sterling, but I'm not going to say it was an extremely shocking thing, because there were definitely people that knew Sean O'Malley could have it. Like, if we bring out, I'll use another upset for an example. If we use Strickland versus Adesanya, it was kind of like no one really believed that Strickland had a chance of winning, whereas people knew that O'Malley had a chance of winning if he kept it on the feet, but it was just a big if. So it was, and we already saw O'Malley beat Peter Yan. It was a really close fight, but we already saw him beat Yan, so it wasn't like, he'd die against top contenders. A majority of the fans thought Aljamain Sterling was going to win. In fact, I actually thought he'd maul him, but I'm going to put it in high A tier. Definitely one of the biggest upsets this year, especially for a title fight as well. But yeah, massive upset. But I'm not going to put it in S tier just yet because, well, I'm not going to put it in S tier because I don't think every single person was counting out O'Malley. There was definitely a lot of O'Malley fans rooting for him, so I'll put it in A tier for now. Massive upset, but I'm not going to say it's the biggest one we've had this year. Next upset, Valentina Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso. Obviously, Grasso managing to beat Shevchenko. This was a massive upset as well. I'm going to put this also in A tier. This might have been one of the biggest women's upsets we've had in a while since the Amanda Nunes loss. Yeah, I'm going to put this in A tier. Valentina Shevchenko was like, no one thought she was going to lose. Like, her last loss before this fight was the one against Amanda Nunes in 2017. Now, I don't know how I feel about putting a women's MMA fight in S tier, because again, I'm not sure how many MMA fans actually pay attention to the women's kind of side of MMA. But for a women's fight, this was definitely an A tier. No one was really rooting for Alexa Grasso. A lot of people just expected it to be another contender that loses. So for her to actually pull off the win against Shevchenko, and not only win the first time, but then get a draw and keep the belt the second time earlier this year, that was just crazy. So Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso, for me, definitely one of the biggest upsets we've had this year. Even the way she was able to finish her as well. Like I said, I don't really want to get the finish in way of the actual result. But yeah, Grasso beating Shevchenko, one of the biggest this year. And yeah, women's MMA started to get interested. And I wonder what Shevchenko's next fight is going to be, though, because it's not going to be a title fight, surely not. Anyway, next fight, Adesanya versus Pereira 2. This was where Adesanya slept Pereira earlier this year at UFC 287. I'll put this one in B tier. Did a majority of the MMA fans think Pereira was going to win? Yes. Was it like an S tier or even an A tier upset? I'm going to say no. There was still a lot of people that knew that Adesanya was an elite kickboxer. The first fight the first MMA fight, I should say, it wasn't like Pereira was dominated Adesanya the entire fight and then eventually got a finish. It was Adesanya winning on the scorecards until Pereira was able to get a finish. And for that reason, there was definitely a lot of people thinking, if Adesanya can avoid getting finished, he'll win the fight pretty comfortably. And, well, he did win the fight pretty comfortably, but it was not how we expected. It was by an absolute brutal knockout. But, yeah, I'll put it in B tier. Definitely an upset. I'd say a good 65-70% of MMA fans, maybe even 75, thought that Pereira was going to win. Even the way that Izzy was acting on fight week, was his confidence shattered? The fact that Pereira had already beaten him 3 times, that definitely brings it up on this list. But I wouldn't say it was a complete Adesanya had no chance type of thing. Similar to O'Malley and Sterling. It wasn't like O'Malley had no chance. So I'll put it in B tier for now. Definitely, an upset, but I wouldn't put it in the higher end of upsets. I put it in the middle on this list. Next fight, we've got Molly Mccan versus Julia Stoll. I'm not even going to try and pronounce her last name. But yeah, this was at UFC. I think it was Aspinall Tabura card. I'm going to put this in a C tier. Was it an upset? Yes, because Molly Mccan was practically given a can to beat. She was practically given an easy fight. I believe Julia came into this fight with a record of like 10 wins and 8 losses. Is her name even Julia? I don't even know if that's her name. I think she's got like a first name that sounds like Julia. I'm just going to call her that because, listen, she doesn't deserve the recognition. But no, I'm pretty sure she had a record of 10 wins and 8 losses coming into this fight. It's so clear that they were trying to give Molly Mccan an easy fight. And even though Molly McCann's not the most reliable fighter, I did expect her to pull off the win again on this one, but she didn't. She managed to fumble it. So I'm not going to say it was one of the biggest upsets this year. It's not like anyone's really talking about this fight anymore, but I just wanted to slide it in there because you've practically been given a can to beat and you couldn't beat it. In fact, you got finished in the first round. So definitely an embarrassing loss for Molly McCann, but yeah, I don't think anyone really saw that coming. We were all expecting it to be an easy fight for her, but that just wasn't the case. So I'll put that in C tier for now. Definitely an embarrassing upset. Next fight, Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier. I'm between A tier and B tier because I'll put it in B tier. It's definitely an upset. And by the way, when I say B tier, this is B tier compared to the other fights on this list. Like, if this is compared to an average win or average pay-per-view win, this is definitely higher up. But this list is kind of based on other upsets, which is why it's in B tier. But the reason it's in B tier is because, like I said, again, a lot of people were going for Poirier. He'd just come off finishing Michael Chandler. He'd already beaten Justin Gaethje before. But again, we knew that Justin Gaethje had changed since the first fight. It's been years since the first fight. Gaethje had already picked up a win against Rafael Fiziev as well. They both lost to Oliveira, both lost to Khabib. We knew that they were two completely different fighters. The only reason you could ever pick Poirier going into this fight was because, well, I guess you could say he finished Chandler and Gaethje didn't, but Chandler's fight IQ is bad, so I don't really think you can measure it that way. But the only reason you could really pick Poirier over Gaethje coming into this fight was the fact that Poirier had already beaten him before. It wasn't like it was a close fight. We all knew it was going to be a close fight, so I'll put it in B tier for now. It wasn't a massive upset. I mean, the way it ended was an upset because he managed to knock him out, but if we're talking about the result itself, I wouldn't say it's like an S tier or A tier upset. I'd say it's in the middle. Definitely more people thought Poirier was going to win, and I feel like the knockout might have kind of got in the way of things, but I'll put it in B tier for now. Definitely an upset, but I wouldn't say it's one of the biggest we've had this year, just because we knew that Gaethje, is a solid fighter. I mean, he's going to be fighting for a belt in his next fight, most likely, so yeah, I'll put it in B tier for now. Well, not. I keep saying for now. I'm probably going to keep it in B tier. Next fight, Sean Strickland versus Israel Adesanya, S tier. This was the biggest upset we've had this year. The reason is, 0 people, and I don't care if you're one of those people that somehow pick Strickland to win, because let's be completely honest, right? This might sound weird, but if you picked Strickland to beat Adesanya, you're stupid. I know he won the fight, but if you use logic and picked Strickland to beat Adesanya, the only world you would pick Strickland to beat Adesanya in a fight is just for the, the joke of it, because the chance that he could get a win. But no one was picking Strickland. Everyone thought Adesanya was going to go out there and beat him comfortably. It was kind of like, we all thought it was going to be a lamb going to a slaughterhouse type thing. No one thought Strickland was going to beat Adesanya. In fact, I still can't believe it was going to happen. The shock, it's still one of the biggest. I'd argue that this is one of the biggest upsets of all time, not just this year. Strickland went out there, he wasn't looking great in the UFC. I mean, he got a win over Abbas Magomedov and then immediately got a title shot from that when Adesanya was supposed to fight Dricus. And the fact that he was able to beat Adesanya, it wasn't like a fluke knockout, it was 5 rounds of domination. Nobody was expecting it, especially when Adesanya was coming off a knockout win over Pereira. I've said this before multiple times, Adesanya is way more dangerous as a challenger than he is as a defender. Look at his entire record, it just shows it, but S tier. 100% an S tier. No one thought Strickland was going to beat Adesanya. This is the biggest upset we've had this year. I don't care if you're one of those people that somehow, predicted this fight to happen. I'd say at least 95% of MMA fans, besides the ones that were kind of memeing or joking, thought that Strickland was going to lose. So I'll put this in S tier. Fair play to Strickland. One of the biggest upsets we've had this year. Next fight. We've got Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez. This was on the same card as Pereira and Adesanya, I believe. When they fought. I'm going to put this as I'll put this as C tier. I'll put it as C tier for now. It wasn't a massive upset. The only reason people were picking Adrian Yanez to win was because Rob Font, well, you know, he'd lost a fight, he'd lost his most recent fight. Adrian Yanez was this young, hungry contender coming off a knockout win. We all kind of saw it as the old, maybe washed Rob Font versus the new hungry contender in Adrian Yanez. And I also think that the way he knocked him out also kind of got in the way of things, because if Rob Font was to have taken Adrian Yanez to a decision, I don't think it would have been, you know, shown around that much of being this massive upset. So it wasn't one of the biggest upsets of the year. I'd say it was just a kind of a shocking underdog win in Rob Font. A lot of people thought Adrian Yanez was going to win this fight, including myself, to be honest with you, because of how he performed previously. I wouldn't call it... I don't even know if Adrian Yanez was an underdog, to be honest with you. Sorry, I don't even know if Adrian Yanez was an underdog. Or Rob Font, sorry. So I don't even... In fact, no, I'm going to put this in D tier. I'll put it in D tier. I don't think that was a really big upset. You know, it could have gone either way, to be honest with you. Both good strikers. I think that, like I said, the result kind of got in the way of how people remembered the fight. But I'll put it in D tier. It was a good knockout, and I don't think people expected the knockout, but the result itself, I don't think it was a shocking fact to say that Rob Font has a chance of beating Yanez. So I'll put it in D tier for now. Next fight, Bobby Green versus Grant Dawson. Yeah, I'll put this in C tier. No, I'll put it in B. No, I'll put it in C. Yeah, again, one of those fights where no one really thought Bobby Green was going to win. We thought Grant Dawson, coming off a hot streak, was going to go out there and beat Bobby Green. It's another one of those fights, like a lot of the fights on this list, where I feel like the result got in the way of the fight. The fact he was able to sleep him so early and knock him out so early kind of got in the way of things. But yeah, most people thought Grant Dawson was going to win. It was the logical pick to make. Grant Dawson by submission. Bobby Green was, you know, he came off a win over Tony Ferguson early this year as well. So yeah, it wasn't a massive upset. I'll put it in C tier for now. Still kind of shocking that, you know, Grant Dawson got beaten the way he did, but I think he just shat himself under the bright lights, to be honest. I don't think it was a case of Bobby Green got one of the biggest upsets. So I'll put this one in C tier. Next fight, Dricus du Plessis versus Robert Whitaker. Another S tier for me. Yeah, this was one of those fights where it was kind of like... everyone was bullying. Well, not bullying, but everyone was kind of joking around, saying that Dricus du Plessis, look at this guy, going life and death with Darren Till and Derek Brunson, and now he's facing the top dog in Robert Whitaker, who's only not been able to get past Israel Adesanya. Especially when Whitaker had been battering contenders like Marvin Vettori previous to this, and the best win that Dricus had coming into the fight was Derek Brunson, where he nearly lost to anyway. No one thought Dricus was going to win, but he goes out there and finishes Whitaker. And I know I say I don't want the finish to get in the way, but he goes out there and manages to beat Whitaker by finish. It was a shocking finish, and for me, yeah, 100% an S tier. This is up there with Adesanya and Strickland, and that's why I can't wait for Strickland versus du Plessis. It's kind of like the battle of the two guys that got the biggest upsets this year. So Dricus du Plessis, yeah, shocking win over Robert Whitaker. I don't know if that was Robert Whitaker's, you know, having an off night, or maybe it was just Dricus is that good, but no one expected one of the most balanced fighters, one of the best strikers, Robert Whitaker, to lose to a guy like Dricus, who looks like he's dying after the first round. But it did happen, and fair play to Dricus du Plessis. He managed to pull off the finish over Robert Whitaker. Next and final fight, Edwards versus Usman 3. Now, this is on the list because there was definitely a lot of people saying that if Edwards doesn't get the knockout, he's going to lose, because we saw the second fight between them where Edwards was losing the majority of the fight until he got the head kick knockout, and people kind of saw it as if he can't get the knockout, he's not going to win the fight, but that just wasn't the case. I'm going to put it in D tier, though. It wasn't like a massive upset. It was kind of a, you know, we were kind of surprised that Edwards was able to win, and we congratulated him for it, but it wasn't like a massive, shocking upset. The rematch was a massive upset, but the trilogy, we'd already seen Edwards beat him before. It was 1-1 going into the fight. A lot of people had reason to pick Usman, which is why it's on this list, but I wouldn't say it's one of the biggest upsets this year at all. I wouldn't even call it a massive upset, to be fair, but yeah, a lot of people were just saying, you know, if Edwards can't knock him out with the head kick or just knock him out in general, then he's going to lose. But no, he was able to beat Usman fair and square with a decision. Wasn't a robbery or anything like that, so I'll put it on this list, D tier, and that is the list of the biggest robberies this year, because we've had loads this year. Yeah, let me know if you agree with this list, if you have any changes that you'd like to make, and let me know if I missed any major robberies out, but thank you for watching.